podcast at kcaaradio.com.
KCAA. Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turfs Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning into the Water Zone show this evening.
Good afternoon, evening, and morning, depending on where you are in the wonderful world. Welcome to the Water Zone. I'm your host, Rob Starr, along with our other host, Mr. Chris Davey, who's in Southern California. And Chris, how are you doing today?
Baking, buddy. I'll tell you, 113 currently outside the window, about 3 feet from me.
We beat you by 1 degree. We're 114.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think California is moving more towards Arizona now, shifting.
Yes, absolutely. I looked outside and tried to pinch the sun between my thumb and four fingers and say, I think I'll put you somewhere else for the next couple of days, but it didn't work.
Well, did you finish working in your yard with all your projects so you don't have to
Yes,
be out
sir.
in the heat?
All done. Only, what's the Mad Dogs and Englishmen would be out there today. Well, I cover half of that.
I was just going to say. So anyway, all pleasant there. We have Miss Chris Austin, who's the purveyor of Maven's Notebook, and she's traveling. She's going, I don't know, are you in Vegas now or getting there?
Oh, I'm in Davis, not Las Vegas, Davis, which is next to Sacramento.
Okay. Oh, I misunderstood you
much
earlier.
Much less fun.
Yeah, I thought you said Vegas, and then you said you're going to UC Davis for a meeting. I go, that's kind of a long drive. But, okay, now I got you. I misunderstood you. So how are things out there?
Up here in Northern California, it's a little hot, 100 degrees. We have been enjoying the last week below normal temperatures, and we have this little heat up today, tomorrow, and next week it will be drifting down to the 87s, I think I saw on Wednesday up in the North State. So, and actually what you said about Southern California becoming more like Arizona, that's actually exactly what's happening with the climate change, is that the Southwest is the dry part of the Southwest is expanding, and it's true. And so wow, 113. Well, I say I'm cool here at 102.
Wow. Well, you got some great news today that I've been reading about, and I'm sure our listeners want to hear about this big deal about the preferred alternative for the Delta with some people. So, want to tell us about that?
Oh yeah, well, I always love it when I get a connection with somebody in D.C. and the people from Congressman Valadeo's office contacted me, and they sent me this letter. I'd like, love the letter. Send me a letter. Now I am an equal opportunity letter poster, be it a Republican, be it a Democrat. If you're writing a letter on California water, I want to see it, because it's usually what we're bickering about. So I posted up the letter, and there was these documents that were released back in the end of July, and these are essentially the environmental documents for the operation of the water projects in the Delta, both the state and the federal project. And so they have selected this alternative, and these documents have this kind of long history of being, guided by a Trump executive order and then a Biden executive order. And so they've been kind of pushed to different extremes, I guess, at least one might say, on whatever side. So they're finally working on the these rules. They're about to finalize them. They want to get them finalized before the end of the year, before the administration change. And in this case, because California water is much more politically charged than, say, the Colorado River, they do want to get it done. Specifically because if Trump comes into office, then it's going to get reset. We're going to go back to the drawing board. So these Republican congressmen are pointing this out, and they are saying that the rules favor the environmental regulations more so than water supply. And they point out that there is no federal or state policy that prioritizes environmental needs over water supply for cities and farms. And there is a state regulation in here too that does contain some of the environmental requirements, and they say the federal project does not have to abide by the state laws in this particular case. And so we'll see how this all works out. They raised some points, some valid points, as most people do in these things. The problem with California water issues is not that one person is wrong and one person is right. Is that everybody is right to a certain degree, and that's the hard part. If it were black and white, wrong and right, we would have solved these things long ago. So we'll see. Here's another volley coming on these documents. I don't know if they'll ever get finished.
It's like all their projects. We just wait and wait and wait and wait. It takes 15 to 20 years before something happens.
Well, they keep arguing back and forth about these documents, and I mean the technical word for these are the biological opinions, and they've actually been under fire since I came on the scene in 2007, way back in the beginning. I can remember some stuff going down in 2008 that over the operation of these water projects. So this is all very long running. It's never really gotten solved to any sense because there's no agreement between the different parties. And so we're kind of get into this mode where whoever has more power at the time pulls it to their side, and then as soon as the winds change, and they usually do, then everything gets undone and pushed back to the other side. And we never really get anything accomplished. We're more shoving things from one side to the other side and back again. And I fear that may be where we're going to stay, although it's the status quo. It's the way it's been for decades. So it's hard to be optimistic that it's going to change anytime soon.
Do you think each side is 100% against the other side? Or do you see maybe there's one, or say there's 20 things they got to do, but that they can come up with one or two that they can agree to? Why, do you ever see that?
Well, the real issue with California water is that, it's the people in the cities, they want to have water for the cities, and they want to have farms and food, and they want to have water in the rivers so there's fish so they can go and recreate on the rivers and fish and etc. And the farmers like to have people in the cities and supply food for them. And the farmers like, their people, they like to see rivers. They fish too. So they don't have a problem with any of those things. The real issue is it's apportioning it between the cities, the farms, and the environment. And that's where we just can't come to any kind of an agreement. And then it's not, always cut and dry, because California's hydrology is so wacky. It could be really wet one year and then bone dry the next year. So it really makes planning for things very difficult. So I think, it's probably going to be the way California water is probably going to work till, I don't see how it could change, because the variability of the climate that we have here in California, which is like no other state in the union, literally, and I'm not making this up, So we just have our own set of problems here, and I think it's going to be way too hard to solve them.
Makes
but
sense.
We'll keep trying. I'm sorry. I hate to sound pessimistic, but I kind of, I don't know. I think that I could probably have this job as long as I can, get up and type. And there will always be something to be covered. There will always be something going on in California water.
That is true. Mr. Davey, jump on in.
I was just going to say, when Rob was saying he doesn't know how he put all this together, right? So that basically when you think about that, it means job security for you, Chris. I mean, when you look at it that way, right?
Yeah. And my husband's even accused me and others of not me, but others of stirring the pot in California water just so we could all have a job, Would that were to be true, but it's not. I mean, the problem is, there's a lot of problems. Though our water laws are very archaic. They were drawn up when we were in the mining era. Now our water use is all different, and we have, literally 1880, 1900 constructs governing us in this 21st century, where our hydrology's changed and we have these major cities now. And this always means a lot of work for lawyers because we have to hammer all these things out. If you want to go to law school and you're interested in water, you will have a career for life.
Just as you were saying, Chris, about the Delta stuff and describing all that, we didn't even touch on the fact that we've got the Delta Conveyance Project still out there trying to get done. And today I read that the DTEC, the Delta Tribal Environmental Coalition, mounting a challenge.
Oh, yeah. Not surprising. You can expect that the Delta Conveyance Project is going to be opposed in every venue and at every opportunity. But this is kind of interesting because there's this coalition of tribes and some of these smaller environmental justice nonprofits like Little Manila Rising and stuff in Stockton. And they are now being aided by a group of law students at a law clinic out of Stanford. So now they kind of have some legal juice behind them. So they are now mounting up some protests here. Now, what's interesting is that, we have these old water right laws, and one of them is that if you put in a claim for a water right, you will have a certain amount of time that you have to start using that water. You have to build however you're going to take the water, and then you need to use it. And if you don't, then you're going to lose that water right. And this is because they didn't want people hoarding water rights and not using them. So apparently the Department of Water Resources forgot to extend its water rights permit on this application, and apparently they forgot to do this like 50 years ago. So you've got the law students, right, picking through all the records, and they've now pulled this up. And so this is really interesting because, DWR says this is just something that's minor, but this group of coalition of tribes and environmental justice troops or nonprofits, they're kind of jumping on that, and we'll see, because it kind of sounds sounds, in a sense, like technically they could be right. So, but it'll be very interesting to see where this goes.
Well, there's always pluses and minuses to everything that everybody proposes. I know, we were talking a couple of weeks ago about the sites project dam, and we were going to have Secretary of Natural Resources from California, Wade Crowfoot. He's going to come on. He's been traveling quite a bit, so they actually just let us know this morning that he wants to pre-record the conversation in a week or two, so we're going to do that. Also, J.B. Robinette, who's the head technical guy for that's going to be on. But they're saying, if they pay off the people who are arguing and give them some money, and maybe that'll quiet them up and they can move the project forward. So is that kind of what's going to happen in the future? That we just pay people, people for a lawsuit, that they pay them off, and then okay, it's all right with us now, so go ahead and do it.
Well, yeah, I hadn't heard that they were going to try and do that, but I don't think they're going to have a lot of luck, because I don't think that the tribal people in general would be swayed by a stack of money, because their motivations are something different, and it's not money, is my impression. And the people that are in the Delta don't want to see this project at all. And there is nothing that you could put on the table that would make them agree to this project and not protest. I mean, there's only one way they're going to do this project, and they're just going to have to. If they're going to do it, they're going to have to somehow, mow through all this opposition. But I think that the love of the Delta for these people that live in the Delta, is not going to be bought off with money. So I think now what we talked about last week up in the Klamath, those people, they had issues like some people had houses that was next to the reservoir. Well, they, took down the dam. There's no reservoir, so they have property value loss. Okay, so you can compensate them for that. That's not having a lake outside your house anymore, but you can be reasonably made whole. Like another issue was the funds from the dam supported their school system. So okay, you find another way to support their school system. But nobody was like losing water. So if you're getting water and you're farming with your water, and they say you can't have any water anymore, then your livelihood is done. That's huge, and even money can't always fix your livelihood,
There are so many people involved in this, Chris. I mean, just lots of different players and interested parties in this. And State Water Resources Control Board, Department of Water Resources, groups like Restore the Delta, and all kinds of other environmental groups. And so, I mean, how does everybody get their point heard and their say? It just takes so long.
It takes a long time, and these are public processes, and, like it or not, we have to go through them. It's just kind of the way that it works here, in California. It'll be really interesting to see what happens with these tunnels, because there are so many things that are going on right now. Even, projects not the tunnels, like they're trying to do the water quality control plan for the Delta. That's all the inflows and outflows in the channels, and how to protect water quality, keep the salt water out, keep the contaminants out, all that stuff. They're working on all of that too, and that's going to affect how this tunnel and how all these other things would also work. So, and they're planning, they talk about more water for the environment, less water for, the farms. So I don't know. It's going to be a tough road ahead, no doubt.
Yeah, I guess we can always always talk about these every single week because it doesn't seem like it's going to change a whole lot.
Hey, it keeps me in business.
Yeah. It's like the California train to nowhere that they've been doing for God knows how many years, and still not done. Gazillions of dollars for that, and got positives and negatives on both. So, anything else tickle your interest, Chris? Maybe.
Yeah. So, Chris, every week when I look at the notebook and I go online there, I always find some little hidden gem somewhere. And we just happened to mention a little bit about all the weather prediction stuff that's happening. We had a little conversation about it and all the mapping that's going on. I mean, for me, right, that's the sciencey stuff that I really like. And now they're doing snow surveys by air, or they will be in hopefully this year. Just thinking about that a minute, what's your view for this coming winter, Chris? I mean, I'm not put you on the spot or anything, but boy, we'd sure like to know what the winter's going to be like, wouldn't we, Chris?
Oh, yeah, we sure would. But we've never been able to do that, at least not yet. Although we certainly try, and some say that it will never happen, but we'll see. But the old Farmer's Almanac is out and with their predictions, and they've been predicting the weather since 1794. They say they're 80% correct. I'm not sure that's true. But the old Farmer's Almanac says that it's going to be a wet and mild winter, and that is, not exactly what our folks are. The regular meteorologists are saying. They're saying, well, it's kind of like cooler and maybe wet. It's a La Nina pattern. So we'll see what happens. It's always interesting to see, what the old Farmer's Almanac comes up with, and all the different ways over the centuries that people have of trying to determine, what is the winter going to be like. I think it's something that man has been trying to figure out for a long time. Well, I remember reading an article about acorns and thickness of onion skins and, all sorts of things.
Well, Rob Starr, as a historian, Rob Starr, right? The Farmer's Almanac was the go-to reference back in the days of our forefathers, buddy. What do you think?
Well, yes, I read stuff that Ben Franklin wrote and believed in that, but they should have got a time machine and go back in time and talk to Nostradamus, because he seems to be more accurate than the almanac in his predictions. So I don't know. I read that.
Does Nostradamus predict the winter?
I don't know. I didn't read everything he's ever written. I've seen a bunch of documentaries on those things. But yeah, I mean, they collected information and data over the years in the short periods of time, just like collecting weather. How many years did they really collect weather information? Maybe only, years back it was only like maybe 80 to 100 years. Now we can do different things because we've got more scientific methodologies to detect those things and identify. We have new ways of getting analysis and data. I think, as we were talking before the show, I think it's going to be interesting in the future, like I said, with AI and all the new science technology that's out, on predicting weather more accurately. And each time that happens, it just adds to the database. So we shall see.
Yeah.
We shall see. Well, we're coming up against our commercial break, and I know you're looking to get prepared to do your UC Davis participation tomorrow. So hopefully that goes good for you, and you'll be joining us next week. And we do appreciate it. So drive careful.
All right, will do. Good evening, everyone.
Have a great week, Chris.
And for our listeners, I always mention, please go to mavensnotebook.com, become a subscriber, get the data every single morning. That's what Chris and I do, and it's a great way to get all the information you ever want, even behind the scenes, what's going on in the water industry. You can also become a sponsor of that. Again, it's www.mavensnotebook.com, and we're glad to have Ms. Chris Austin every single week. So we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to be back with our featured guests. We have some pretty nice people that we're going to talk to, and I won't give you a hint because I'd rather have me and Chris introduce them to you. So stick around. We'll be right back in a few minutes.
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda is sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters1932.org.
Hello, you're here because you want to grow your business and you're interested in seeing how adding outdoor lighting installations as a new service offering might help. Not only is adding lighting an easier way to add new revenue, it's also a great investment for your homeowners, increasing their property value by up to 20%. And because customers can easily see the difference lighting makes, they're likelier to sign on the dotted line and then brag to their neighbors about it, increasing your profitability. So how do you get started? Well, you've already got a truck, you've got most of the tools, and you also have a full list of prospects. Start by reviewing past projects. Identify customers, friends, or relatives who might benefit from lighting and could become an advertisement for other homes in the neighborhood, since a good installation can earn a lot of referrals. Consider giving a discount in exchange for using the project in your marketing efforts. And be sure to take before and after pictures. With your first couple of projects, ask lots of questions. What do your customers want in their lighting project? Common goals include illuminating an outdoor seating area, spotlighting unique features in the landscape, lighting pathways, or adding nighttime curb appeal. But you won't know until you ask. What's the budget? If there isn't one, put together two versions of the proposal, simple and full coverage. You can always land somewhere in the middle. Where is the power source located? What is the function of the space? Are there plans to expand the space or add more lighting in the next 2 to 3 years? Does the community have any lighting restrictions? Look at other houses in the area with lighting. Look for gaps in coverage or dark spots and think about how that could be solved when installing your first project. Always check local codes and permit requirements before starting a project. Some locations require a certified electrician on the project, and insurance coverage is recommended. For any landscape contractor, outdoor lighting is an exciting add-on to grow your business, keep your crews busy, and generate more revenue. Online or in-store, SiteOne has the resources you need, including products and training, as well as technical and design support. Visit SiteOne today to learn more and get started in outdoor lighting.
All right, well, I'd like to welcome everybody back to the second half of the Water Zone radio show. I'm your host, Chris Davey, along with the all-knowing Rob Starr, who's poised at the other microphone here, some 320 miles away in Arizona. But as always, we'd like to thank our listeners and our sponsors. Thank you very much for being a part of our show and indeed the reason for the show and the Water Zone here. And remember, you can always listen to this episode and many past episodes as a podcast at waterzone.podcast.toro.com. All right, guys, our second segment guests here are ready to speak to us, and I've got a little confession to make here. They have a bit of a relationship with a long-standing supporter of the Water Zone, that being John Farner. He's formerly with the Irrigation Association. Many of us know him from there. Also with Netafim, and currently he's the executive director of the Babbitt Center, that's 2 B's and 2 T's. For Land and Water Policy within the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy. And Mr. Farner was on the Water Zone. He was our guest back in May of this year, and he gave our listeners a great rundown of what he and the Babbitt Center do. By the way, John's podcast is also on the website I just mentioned. During John's segment, Rob and I learned of an affiliate organization out here on the West Coast in Claremont, California, where I live, and it's called the Claremont Lincoln University. And today, we're happy to have Lynn Pretty and Joanna Bauer joining us on the Water Zone. Welcome, Lynn and Joanna.
Welcome. How do we sound? Are we clear?
You're
great.
clear as the bell.
Yep, absolutely good. You know, you can do a
commercial for Verizon.
You probably could. Well, I'm gonna let you guys talk a little bit about yourselves in a second here, but I want to just give a little summary intro for our listeners. This is kind of a different subject for the water zone, but definitely tied to our industry, as I think our listeners are going to find out here in just a minute. So, just as a quick introduction to these guys for our listeners, let's start with Joanna. Dr. Bauer, an educator, been in teaching for many, many years, as well as having academic administrative roles, and she's been recognized many times. That's awards, I mean, by that recognition. And then we also have Lynn Pretty, PhD, so Dr. Pretty there as well. She's the president of Claremont Lincoln University. That is part of the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy, as I was just saying. And in 2022, Lynn led the merger of Claremont Lincoln University into the Lincoln Institute. And now, together, Lynn and Joanna are going to discuss with us here on the Water Zone their very innovative approaches to higher education, specifically in the public sector, focusing on things like the workforce and leadership and trust crisis management and those sort of things, all the while addressing very critical issues, including like housing and climate change, equity, water, and infrastructure. So a good discussion coming up here. So, Dr. Pretty, let me start with you. I can see you're enjoying the achievement of a great career so far, not just in education, but research, strategic planning, executive leadership. Oh, my gosh, you're a board member. You've been in acquisitions and mergers and government with the Department of Education, also working with Native Americans as part of your background. So, I was going to say what makes you tick, but there's a lot there. So why don't you give us a little bit more information about yourself, and then if you would, just hand it right back over to Joanna for the same question.
Okay, doke. Well, I'll be fast. The real me is for 38 years, I've been trying to recreate higher education to work for working adults and all types of working adults, including the tribes that you mentioned. Back in the 80s, started working with tribes, most of mine across North Dakota, South Dakota, Wisconsin, and the northern tier there. And when it came to water, we were working with cultural rights, i.e. spearfishing and hunting and things of that nature in that area where there is a marked difference. I was very appreciative of your previous speaker. But so for me, I'm still trying to get the world of college to step directly into the work world, to teach and coach there, as opposed to expecting people to step into the world of college to learn, and it's outside the real world. So that's what makes me tick, and it directly relates to John Farner, the Babbitt Center, water, and all sorts of data. But before we get to that, let me hand it back to Joanna.
Thank you, and thanks, everyone. So nice to be here. And similarly with Lynn and John Farner, just as Lynn was mentioning, what makes me tick is really empowering leaders. So empower what we call at CLU the everyday leader, those who are on the job every day, making a difference, creating change, and having an impact, and really facilitating their journey, their self-discovery, providing skill development, toolkits, knowledge base, all of those things, to really optimize their impact. So we really are focusing on that impact of higher education, and to not only be industry aligned, but also be part of the industry in convening and networking. And so that's where Lynn and I converge in a lot of our wants of changing the landscape of higher education.
So what does it mean to be part of the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy? Can you kind of mold that together for our listeners?
Yeah, let me start, and let's see what Joanna picks up on. So first, we're nonprofit. The Lincoln Institute is nonprofit, just like Babbitt Center is nonprofit, and we're a university. So what that means is we're not like a typical college. We have just a handful of degrees, certificates, and mostly graduate and then baccalaureate completion level. The goal is we've refashioned the entire institution around all the research, intellectual property, the policies, the practices, the tools of the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy. So, for example, with the Babbitt Center, John Farner is looking at how do I actually recreate all the training and education needs I need to get to my mission and goals with the Babbitt Center and out to, well, say it's the Colorado Basin. Maybe it's obviously about water rights, but into other areas. How can I use this university to do all that work for me? Try one more. the Center for Geospatial Solutions. For listeners, the Center for Geospatial Solutions has data on who owns every parcel of land in the United States, and it can give it to cities, water districts, anywhere. It has the Internet of Water that has the same on water with every meter. So what we do, by being part of the Lincoln Institute, we can actually deliver education and training, degree and non-degree, directly related to what's happening in the industry, right at your workplace on the challenges you're trying to accomplish. That's what makes us different. That's what it means to be part of the Lincoln Institute.
Awesome. Joanna, chime in.
Yeah, and I would add there specifically about water that, and as Lynn said, really looking at, and I'm sure your listeners are aware of this, but what does that mapping do for you? So just about anything you want, the Lincoln Institute can map. Different biospecies, different native plants, the upwards of 460,000 bodies of water that is in the U.S. So all of that information and looking at it from different types of how does that affect housing? How does that affect water rights? How does that affect land rights and taxation and public safety and health and wellness and all of those things, climate change, all of those things. So we're very excited to have integrated the Lincoln Institute intellectual property and resources and all of their myriad data into our courses. So that's just one thing that makes us different from other universities.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to ask, it's just kind of a follow-up there. So if someone went to the school there, what are the names of some of the degrees, the diplomas that you get? As my dad would say, where are you going to go to get your sheepskin, son? So, what would be the name on that?
Okay, so you have to. We are two houses within one university. So we do have all the classic degrees, your master's in public administration with various concentrations, including one that focuses in on land and water, land policy, et cetera. Master's in sustainability leadership, climate readiness, all those pieces. Master's in human resource management, i.e. also looking into the public health areas. Master's in organizational leadership with umpteen bazillion concentrations, along with a bachelor's, so that those who come back to school can actually transfer in all of their experience. We translate that into learning, so it's shorter time to degree. So we have that traditional side of the house. There's also a master's in social impact and a master's in healthcare administration, SHRM certified in the HR. The other side of the house is different. It takes those credentials, unbundles them into advanced practice certificates directly related to the challenges, whether it's in a water district, a municipality. It literally delivers them directly into the workplace in both an individual and a team-based focus. And that's this new program called Lincoln Vibrant Communities. So the one side is more of a traditional model, although online and affordable and always available. The other is this whole new model to try to actually serve cities, counties, water districts, public works association, name any part of a city, to actually help them tackle some of these wicked challenges on these complex issues that we have not been able to deal with, whether it's because of policy, whether it's because of the councils, whether it's because of the inability to engage the community well, like your last speaker talked about. So two very different types of approaches to the education, both delivering these advanced practice graduate certificates as well as the degree.
So let me ask you, the curriculum that you utilize for your courses, are they created internally and individually, or is it taking it from the public knowledge, meaning the public sector?
So that's a perfect question. So, and I'll let Joanna follow up on this. So it's the biggest mistake institutions often make is that they are the masters of the field. That's exactly the wrong thought. We actually gather all of our knowledge from the masters in the field, the real, actual, everyday leaders. We have to tick and tie all of the accreditations, all of the things. We meet all of the federal requirements, blah, 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 blah. But the knowledge is directly taken from all of the history and the research and the practices of the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy. It's vetted along with the actual work of city leaders. So, for example, our new concentration in policing studies, several police chiefs are helping to map out what actually the new police officers must learn. We have multiple mayors who have helped us develop, and city managers develop what needs to happen if we're going to address mental health or children's needs 0 to 5 in actual cities. And then when we work with John Farner, we'll be working with John, plus all of his bevy of incredible folks like you and others in the water industry, and we will, they'll help determine the curricula. Our faculty are also those same practitioners. Joanna, why don't you mention that?
Yeah, and just as Lynn was saying, it really is, again, not just industry aligned, but really embedded in industry. And we have very highly recognized advisory council members that we use as our subject matter experts. And a different thing that we like to do for our university is instead of having tenure track faculty or faculty that's what they do, which is great as teachers, but we have scholar practitioners who are actually working in the field, and so they bring their vast expertise, and then working all together as a collaborator for our courses, and making sure we have the most up-to-date intellectual property and resources and so on. So it really is that collaborative model of developing the course, and then keeping it updated and current.
Well, it just sounds like a very unique program, right? And it looks like it's directed right at municipalities and counties, the public sector, and you know that kind of stuff. So if I was taking this program, Lynn or Joanna, either one, if I was taking this program, how would my experience be different than going somewhere else?
Okay, so let's suppose, congratulations, you have just been made a Lincoln Vibrant Communities Fellow. Okay, you are going to go to Chicago next week. You are going to meet with 56 other people who are all trying to focus on one or another challenge in your city, in your county, or whatever portion of the public sector you are in. You are attending individually, but you're really going to hone over the next 6 months in your workplace your own leadership skills. You're going to actually challenge yourself as a leader. You're going to take on an actual issue. You're going to touch base with all of these other individuals doing the same thing in their cities, municipalities, states, counties, etc. You're going to vet it by the experts with the Lincoln Institute, vet it by our faculty and our coaches who are both in the field and expert faculty and qualified faculty. And you're going to literally work up. And so let's say your goal is you want a whole new plan around services for mental illness related to homelessness in, let's just say Laverne, and you're going to take it to your city council. Your actual product, working within your city with the help of all these other people, will be to create that full scenario and the master plan to take to the council. So the council loves you, right? Yay! And so then we help fund your ability to gather 6 to 7 people and bring back a team. And now, as a team, you do a kickoff event with 10 other teams. You're taking on this whole big issue of mental illness, let's say, and then we are going to coach and be right by your side in your workplace, online. You access us. You've got a massive network of all these other people you can tap into. And as a team, you're actually going to try to do something about this issue, not just learn about it, not just research it. We help you bring all the data from the Lincoln Institute. If it's a water issue, we're going to bring John Farner and his folks in with all of their data. We'll map it with geospatial solutions. We'll help you figure that all out. And the goal is that you begin to have impact by the end of that. Along that way, congratulations, you just earned 18 graduate credits toward a master's in advanced practice, public administration, innovation, and trend.
Do you have any partners or agencies involved with this?
Other than the Lincoln Institute, we have some funders in development. We are also a partner with the Communities of Excellence from the Baldrige Alliance. The Communities of Excellence has been in operation about 10 years, working with a lot of municipal teams, many in San Diego area. They have really excelled at bringing in the private sector. We excel at bringing in the public sector, and we're going to see what we can do together that brings those two together, because the private sector often has the money that can help push the city money further, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And probably
Yeah.
the next question here probably maybe for Joanna, because I know a lot of people are going to ask this question, or are probably listening right now and on the chat board. What about cost? It sounds so unique. Is it also uniquely expensive as well, or is it something that the reasonable person can do?
And the Lincoln Vibrant Communities program, as with all of our programs, is extremely affordable and accessible. We have different types of costs to it, but we definitely want to make sure that everything is accessible for all. And actually, this is more of a question for Lynn, because she is working to make sure that this is sponsored and that we have the support that we need to bring in the leaders that we want to support.
But Joanna, our degrees are all under $20,000. The full master's degree under $20,000. The baccalaureate,
all under $20,000
to $15,000. And because it's brand new, the Lincoln Vibrant Communities, which if we were to break even, we would charge $10,000 per person, and that's for that whole 18 months of work. This year we're testing the program with all the partners and funders, and it's subsidized by others, particularly the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy, for only $1,500 for the fellows and $1,500 for the teams. We even cover the lodging for the big kickoffs and things like that. So the goal is to work with everyday people who have everyday budgets and focus on their needs. We can do that because of the Lincoln Institute. That's remarkable. So top quality and remarkably low prices.
So Lynn, how does this relate to other public sectors and public works, such as water districts, sanitation, public health, public safety, etc.?
So we're just launching the first part of the Vibrant Communities. The dream and the plan is to have, I won't spill the beans on what John Farner is planning for water, but my hope is that we have a whole set of water districts, perhaps all from the same region, trying to tackle an issue, perhaps all from the Colorado River Basin, perhaps across the 3 states or so, including the tribes. And they literally use the program to work together over that total 18 months. And we bring to them the network that keeps them all working together online, as well as the coaches, as well as the faculty, et cetera. We would and what we would have to do ahead of time, which is what I can say John and I are beginning to talk about, is what does that curriculum look like? And that's not something we'll create. That's something the Babbitt Center and CLU, Claremont Lincoln, will do together.
So it's all
yeah,
and
I want to add just one more part to that, if I can. I think it's really important to note that with all of these topics and so on, that this is truly coursework where you learn, apply, and replicate. So you replicate within the community. So that's why we bring in the community and the topics and so forth that they're interested in. Because the way that we look at our curriculum and our programs is it's not coursework that is separate from what you're doing. It truly does work within what you're doing and is embedded in your work. So it's not, you don't go to work and then suddenly you have to do a bunch of work afterwards to earn your degree. So that's why it's really going to be embedded in what the particular industry supports.
The big question is whether. Sorry, go ahead.
No. go ahead and finish. I just have my one last question for me, but I was just going back to the other questions. Is there any scholarships available?
Yes. Right now, in particular, when you become a fellows, you are scholarships, right? And for anyone who becomes part of a partner in any way, it's an immediate 10% off. So, for example, all the cities with which we have memorandums, anyone in the city can attend any of our programs for 10% off. And in the Lincoln Vibrant Communities program, the additional funding reduces that even further, particularly for this next 18 months. And then that's what we're actively seeking at this point in time. And as I was going to say, the real question will be, Rob and Chris, is whether we can rebuild trust in our public sector between our citizens and local government, and then inspire people to want to go into public service. You know, Austin, I'm just learning, Austin has 300 police officer positions open. The vast majority of of municipalities have a impending retirement that could cut their workforce by 30%. How are we going to fill those if no one trusts local government?
Yeah, good. Joanne, you have a comment?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, we really do need to make sure that we're living and valuing the people who are leading our local communities and serving the public good. So that's another, that workforce crisis is something we're definitely interested in addressing.
Well, after the experience of getting a fellowship and that great experience in Chicago, thanks very much for that, Lynn. What could I expect? You know, coming out of your program, what kind of job can I expect to get?
Well, Joanna, do you want to handle that one?
Well, I would say because certainly these are people who are experts in their field currently. So they could be the top managers, they could be the middle managers. And so the people that so far we're serving with our fellowships and with our degrees in general are in the public sector, are in the workplace that they want to do. What this will help them, though, is really understand the industry tools, develop skills, have additional resources, expertise, networks, really move into the ecosystem of not only being educated in this way, but being able to be a leader because of, those really wicked, evocative, thoughtful problems that we want to address. So again, our students and our learners and our fellows are in the industry that they want to be in, but we just want to get some additional support and resources.
Oh, perfect explanation there. Yeah, I was just going to say,
just real quick, go first.
I'm just going to say, we got a minute left here, Rob, so I just wanted to give those guys a chance to let our listeners know if they want to find out more information, how do they get that information, how do they contact you?
So the fastest way to contact us is you can email one of us directly. I believe you have, or do I need to say so verbally? The easiest way would be to go Claremont Lincoln University to our website and to hit the resources tab, and you'll see Lincoln Vibrant Community. That's kind of a passive way. So actually, the easiest way is to email me directly at lpriddy, LPRIDDY, at ClaremontLincoln.edu.
Awesome. Thanks. There's a lot of problems in our industry, as you just heard Chris Austin on Maven's Notebook Notes. So this is a way to get to those challenges with some more young people coming into our industry. Thank you guys so much for being on the Water Zone. We should have done a 1-hour show and may contact you to come back. But I appreciate it. For all of our listeners out there, Rob and I always say, help keep our planet blue. And for our listeners, we'll see you next week on the Water Zone. Thanks for tuning in this week. Have a great week, guys.